Welcome back. I hope you've been following the calculations and doing them by yourself. Turns out we started off with an RA of 6.3% and we combined that to get the return on equity of 7.82%. Does that make sense? Answer is yes. Why? Because the return on equity should always be greater than or equal to the return on asset. You know, there are some things in life that work, and imagine finance gives you most of them, otherwise life is pretty confusing. So 7.82 is greater than 6.3, makes sense. But then you go to WACC and you expect what? That the highest will be return on equity, then will be return on assets, then will be weighted average cost of capital, and then will be return on debt. Weighted average cost of capital we have calculated, and I'm keeping up this my beautiful handwriting for a little while, we found was 5.23%. We used the formula of enterprise value, ignoring changes below the line, and we said 250 is the EBIT before tax. After tax, it's 250 multiplied by 0.66. And now you divide by 0.0523, which is WACC, but that is simply using a perpetuity. The question is, what is the split between the two? You should know that we know that's half equity and half debt, because the debt to equity ratio is 1. I believe this is 1.578, approximately 1.578 debt and equity. And you know that makes the debt to equity ratio 1. What I'm going to do in the next few minutes is cover the other two methods. Then we'll come back and quickly go through the same process using approach 2. Okay? So let's go to the APV method. Let's just see what APV method does. APV method is EBIT 1 minus TC divided by not WACC but RA. This number has to be lower than the value of the total company, simply because it's ignoring the tax shield. So then you have to add back the tax shield. Remember, when you're taking approach 1, what is the value of the tax shield? The value of the tax shield will be determined by a discount rate of RD. Okay? So let's do it. Do we know EBIT? It is 250. And do we know 1 minus TC? It is 0.66. Do we know RA? 0.063. Critical thing about the RA is the RA of your business and the RA of a comparable have to be the same. That is actually one way of figuring out whether you have a comparable or not. So that's why it's extremely important to figure out the value of your comparable based on it being actually a pure play. Okay? Turns out this number will be 2.619 billion dollars. Okay? Right? So that's the part that's easy. But we know what is the total value of the firm. The total value of the firm is larger. So let's do the tax shield. Tax shield will be what? It will be D times RD times TC, which is the cash flow of the debt. Here things are very simple. We can do it pretty quickly. We will be discounting by RD. Later, when we get to the valuation method where RD is not the discount rate, RA is the discount rate, things get a little bit trickier, but not too bad. Here, what I'm going to do is take advantage of the fact that RD's cash flow and the discount rate of RD are the same and cancel them out, and we are left with D times TC. Do we know D? We just figured out it is 1.578. Do we know TC? Yes. So we multiply that by 0.34. You see how easy it becomes. And I have done this calculation, and the answer is 0.537. The two add up to 3.155 billion. Okay, so what I'm going to do is give you a sense of why I like this method. I think those of you who already know it, you can just take a little break. The size of the pie is this. This is the total value of the firm. Part of the value comes from taxes going to whom? Government. Not comes from, goes to, right? So that part, well, that's the way it is. But the main value I really like is VU. Value of the unlevered firm with taxes is the key part I'm interested in, right? And that, in this case, that's APV's main approach. But it does the PV of your value and then adjusts it for what? The tax shield. And the tax shield to me is not real. It is man-made. So I call it, and it is financial. It's based on a financial policy. So can you imagine tomorrow that somebody will say, wait a second, maybe by giving a tax break to debt, we are encouraging the adoption of debt policies, aggressive debt policies. Maybe we shouldn't do this. What will happen to the tax shield? It will disappear. But does that mean your basic idea wasn't valuable in real terms? Answer is yes, it was valuable. That's why I like the splitting up of the total value of the firm. Thinking of it like that is really awesome. Why? Because you're then thinking of value creation in a very, very positive way. I think the answer to this piece was 0.537 billion, and the answer to this piece was 0.2619 billion. WACC gives you what? WACC combines them and gives you 3.155 billion. I like APV because it splits it up. Both WACC and AP have one thing in common, which I like though. They make you focus on the value creation process, mainly on the asset sides. Now let's go to the third method, which is great, but it's now based on equity valuation. So let's see what it does. Equity valuation method takes value of equity, adds value of debt. Okay? I'll do the easy part. Do we know the value of the debt? 1.578 billion. So the key here is figuring out value of equity. What do we need for it? Let's see. You have EBIT, you know it, but now you have to subtract interest. Why? Because equity holders don't get all of this. Equity holders get only that part of EBIT that is after the interest is paid out. But the good news is interest is tax deductible. That's good news. So you do taxes after subtracting EBIT. And then you do by RE. Question, do I know TC? Yes. Do I know RE? Now here's where doing a thorough analysis is always good. Yes, I already know it's 7.82%. Remember, we have to calculate RE to get to WACC going from RA, right? So we know 7.82, and I think I have that number right. 250 million, right? So the only number left to figure out is how much is the interest, okay? So let's do it. This is neat. You see how cool that was? So what do? You do RD times D is the interest. Okay, do we know RD? Yes, it's 0.04 or 4%. Do we know the amount of debt? Yes, 1.578. So let's keep working on this and make sure that I have the numbers right. So your interest will be 63.12 million. Sorry. If it was billion, we are in trouble. How did I get that? 0.04 times $1.578 billion. Please notice the change in thing. And if you do the multiplication, that should be the answer. So let's figure out value using equity method. We have 250 minus 63.12. Remember, 250 is in million. The only number here is in billion is the total value of debt or total value of the firm, just for convenience, right? Multiplied by y minus 0.34 divided by what? RE, which is 0.0782. And this number turns out to be $1.577 billion. But we know how much is debt. Debt is $1.578 billion. And the total amount turns out to be, I should call this equity method, not the value of equity, okay, is 3.155 billion. What I would like you to do is go through this whole analysis on your own. I've written a lot, I'm writing a lot, and I'm wanting to make sure that everything you see is transparent. And the good news is you'll use this method many times in finance, and it's good to get, very comfortable with numbers. We're going to take a break, and I'll see you in a little bit. What do we have left to do in this section? We now will cover doing all three methods, starting off with an RA of 6% and a beta A of 0.8, which was approach number 2, which says that when I looked at bears as a comparable, I pulled up these two numbers based on their information, but assuming the tax shield's discount rate was RA. See you in a minute.